Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pierre Jr., and today I'll discuss pollinator decline in Ontario. I'll touch base on impacts, policies, and conservation strategies. Bee and other pollinators are very important in supporting agriculture and biodiversity, but their population are decreasing. This presentation will explore the ecological and economic impacts of this decline and also touch base on the current policy initiative and potential conservation strategies. Pollination is very important for food production and ecosystem stability in Ontario. Crop like apples, berries, and melon rely on wild and managed pollinators such as the eastern bumblebees and honeybee. However, population of these pollinators are declining, decreasing due to habitat loss, pesticide exposure, especially neonicotinoids, climate change disrupting flowering cycles, and disease like varroa destructor might affecting honeybee colonies. This decline affects food productions and biodiversity, which is posing a risk to our agriculture system and also ecological balance. Pollinator populations have been declining due to change changes in land, right? Intensive farming and pesticide use. Neo Neonicotinoid pesticide harm pollinators' ability to navigate, reproduce. Climate change also disrupt our flowering cycles and as well as impacting pollinator food sources. So Ontario have implemented the pollinator health action plan in 2016. Uh, the health plan was introduced to tackle habitat loss, pesticide exposure, and climate effects. So, although neonicotinoid regulation were introduced in 2015, enforcement has been lacking, uh, leading to ongoing conflicts between conservation goals and agriculture interests. Uh, the ecosystem services assessment, the ES cascade model. Uh, this model evaluate pollination in agriculture in also natural systems, which is important for crop yields, biodiversity, and economic stability. So let's take the apple industry, which is my case study, right? So the apple industry heavily depends on pollinators, and a decline in bee population leads to lower fruit yield, higher production costs, and reliance on rented honeybee colonies. So therefore, inadequate pollination can reduce agricultural productivity and as well as impacting food supply and economic stability. So pollination services contribute to over 2 billion annually to Canada's agriculture economy, with Ontario playing a significant role. Therefore, in pollination, declining pollinators increase costs for farmers, reduce crops yield, and contribute to food price volatility. So the loss of plant diversity also disturb food webs, affecting species reliant on flowering plants. As I mentioned earlier, right? In 2016, Ontario introduced the Pollinator Health Action Plan to promote conservation, reduce pesticide use and conduct research. However, they have been in lacking in enforcement and also resistance from farmers and as well as the agrochemical industry persist. Farmers need more incentives to adopt pollinator friendly practices, leading to inconsistent implementations. Right. So without improved policy enforcement and support, pollinator population will keep on declining. Stakeholder perspective. Pollinator conservations involves various stakeholders with different priorities. Farmers depend on pollinator for crop, as I mentioned earlier. So they depends on pollinator for crop production, but also need pesticide for protection. And beekeepers advocate for stricter pesticide regulations. Government agency must also balance agriculture productivity with environmental sustainability. Environmental groups advocate for stricter conservation policies, and consumers influence the demand for pollinator friendly products. Policy and recommendations. Enhancing pollinator conservation requires financial incentives for farmers, stricter pesticide regulations, as I mentioned earlier, and expanded habitat restoration program. So, collaboration among government agencies, researchers, and agricultural sectors can also support long-term sustainability, and as well as regulatory frameworks should also be prioritize pollinator-friendly agriculture practices without compromising food productions. Uh, my research case study the apple industry, right? So the Ontario apples industry demonstrate the consequences of pollinator decline. Farmers increasingly rely on rented honeybee, which is very costly, right? So they have been rented honeybee colonies to sustain production. This increased costs and reducing profitability. Well, pollinators are very important and they play a crucial role in supporting food security and biodiversity, but the population are constantly threatened by habitat loss, pesticide use, and climate change. While policies such as the Pollinator Health Action Plan are in place, better enforcement and incentive are also needed. A collaborative effort involving policymakers, farmers, and conservationists very important to maintain pollination services and also enhance our agricultural awareness, right? So, well, thank you for your attention and feel free to ask any questions. Let me back up a little bit. These are my questions. What role should the government play in financially supporting farmers who adopt pollinator friendly practices, and how can this balance with economic interests in large scale agriculture? And the second one, how can urban areas contribute to pollinator conservation, and what policies or community initiative could be implemented to support pollinator habitat loss? I mean, habitat in cities. How can Ontario balance agriculture with pollinator conservation? Well, and again, thank you for your attention and feel free to ask any question. Thank you.